Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
Well, look who's back. It's you. And now we're together again. Yes, we're here to do part 2 of Rahab and the Spies. I know. I just didn't want to rush it, you know. I've done that before. I'm actually, you guys probably know this, but I'm gonna redo season 1. I'm gonna call it, season 6 is gonna be, 1st and 2nd Samuel reboot, because there were a lot of things I learned in that first season just doing this. I remember one of those episodes. I think I went an hour and 45 minutes because I was just seeing, like, if I'm gonna talk alone in my basement, then what's to stop me from making a really long episode? But generally speaking, we have found that I do best at about 30 to 40 minutes, and after that it gets a little long. Not that we haven't gone that long, but we've done 50-minute ones, but generally I try to keep it between 30 and 40 minutes. And yesterday we landed right at 30, and if I tried to jam this one in, then we would have went like 50 to 60, and there was just no need for such things. Anyway, my dog is, he loves it. He sees the microphone come out and he curls up at my feet or gets a bone to chew on. It's like, oh, we're recording. That means I can stay right here and listen. He loves these stories. Don't you, Zacapa? Yeah, he's very curious as to what happens with Rahab and the Spies. So let's get right into it. Now, if you recall, yesterday, verse 1 of chapter 2, then Joshua son of Nun secretly sent 2 spies to Shittim, from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of the prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So what we have here is, I alluded to it yesterday, but we have several key things that are talking about time. I don't know how long these spies were in the area, but they went out to do some recon, to get the lay of the land again, but more so to get the sense of what the people of the land were considering. Were they getting excited? Were they getting ready for war? Were they antagonistic? Were there rallies about whatever? Like they were just looking for the general atmosphere of what was going on in the land. And so they resided at Rahab's hotel. And there they picked up a lot of what was going on, and so did Rahab, and I talked about that yesterday. But when it says that the king was told, Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land, that word tonight is basically, it means not day. And it's in English, right? We read it and our heads think, oh, the spies went across the river and immediately were caught. And there's Sunday school lessons that teach that. The very night that they were there, they got caught. But that's not the indication. All it means is that when it wasn't daytime, the king was informed. There's some Israelites here doing some recon. They're trying to figure, they're spying out the land. They're taking a look at our city. So I'm thinking it could have been several days later, because I'm guessing an Israelite being in Jericho wasn't this big cause of alarm. They probably had been in and out of Jericho a number of times. As I said, there were merchants involved in daily trade with them. There were conversations. There were whatever going on. And so 2 Israelites being in the city would not have been alarming. What became curious for people was that these 2 were staying in a hotel, and they were probably asking specific questions here and there, nosing around in the marketplace, down by the city gate. They were checking things out with various merchants. whatever their little subtleties were, it eventually got around to a guard or a friend of a merchant who was a guard or whatever. That'd be like, hey, there's a couple Israelites that are actually asking some really interesting questions or curious questions. I'd be curious. I was in their camp a week ago and everybody was packing up. They were getting ready to move. Now they haven't moved, but I don't know where they're going except to come over here maybe, and these two guys are asking those kind of questions. And again, I don't know what kind of questions those would be, but whatever it was, I think it kind of tripped an alarm. It triggered some people. And so they let it be known. And of course that got tossed around. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. That got tossed around amongst the people. And eventually one of the guards was probably like, we probably need to tell the king, see what he wants to do. We don't know, what these guys really want. We don't know what they've looked at. We don't know if they've, stuck in anywhere. So it happened when it wasn't day. And it probably also indicates it was after the doors were shut, after the gates were shut. That's where the king sent the guards. Now they knew where they were. It wasn't like the guards had to follow them. They knew that they were staying at Rahab's house. And so they went to Rahab's hotel. And they asked specifically if they were there. Let's read some more, just so that I'm not making it all up. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab: "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land." But the woman had taken the two men and hidden them, and she said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I don't know where they've come. I didn't know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close up the city, they left. I don't know which way they went. Maybe if you run after them or go quickly, you can catch up to them." But she had taken the men up to the roof and hid them under stacks of flax. She had laid out there on the floor. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the roads that lead to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone, the gate was shut. But the spies laid down for the night. Before the spies laid down for the night, she went up to the roof. All right, so again, let's break this down. They go up and they were like, all right, we know the spies are in here, so show them to us. The guys who came, they're here to spy out the land. Again, not specifically Jericho, although that was emphasized in Joshua's instructions. It was the idea that they were here to spy out the land for something very specific regarding military pursuits. No threat of death here. No, like we need to kill them. It was, we want to talk to them. So Rahab, understanding evidently that these guys were coming, because it says that she hid them. So she must have known, somebody might have tipped her off, but she knew that these guys were coming, or she wouldn't have hid them. She already had them on the roof. She buried them under a bunch of, in essence, hay. It's called flax. It's another grass, tall grass grain. And it was not unusual for people to dry flax all over the rooftops, because you needed to dry it in order to winnow it and get the seeds. So she buried them underneath all this stuff. And then she goes down to the door. Now, I'm guessing it wasn't actually the door. They probably already walked in. It was a hotel. They probably were standing in the lobby or in the pub area, if you want. I don't know what else to call it. And they're like, "Hey, we want to talk to the guys that came into you." And she goes, "Oh, well, they're already gone. They, before the gates were shut, they took off." Now it's interesting to me that she didn't send the spies running before the gates were shut. She knew the guards were coming. She hides them instead of sending them away. She could have said, "Listen, I know the guards are coming. You need to run, and I'll tell you where." Instead, she hides. That's a pretty high personal risk. Now, remember, she's the head of the family for whatever reason, whether she's a widow or divorced or whatever. She's the head of this household. She didn't let the spies run. She, like I said, she buried them, and the guards didn't try to rip the hotel apart. Because I believe that that they respected Rahab and they expected compliance from her. They did not suspect that she would not comply to their request, to the request of the king. So in that, she takes advantage of that and she lies. She says, I don't know anything. I didn't even know where they came from. And they're not here now. And I don't know where they went. And they left. And I don't know really when they left. She really kind of had about five or six lies in there that she just spouted off very naturally. And the guards didn't suspect. They didn't suspect. So they probably knew her. Like I said, often these hotels along the walls were places where guards would stay while they were on duty, or no, technically while they were off duty. They would hold up these hotels and then go back on duty. So maybe they knew her. Maybe she knew them. Maybe there was prostitution involved in all of this. Somehow, when she lied to them, they did not suspect that she was lying. Because they didn't tear it apart. They didn't say, well, we're going to have a look around. Well, we'll go up to your roof and see if maybe we can see them. If they're running down the street or whatever. Nope. So while the men were on the roof, verse 8, before they went to bed, before they bedded down, she went to see them. Again, what is she trying to accomplish here? She's a wise woman. She knows what they've been doing. Like I said, I don't know if they've been there 3 days, 5 days. It could be 1 day. It's not, that doesn't make it wrong if someone thinks that this is happening all in the same day of their arrival. But whatever it was, there was things about them and things that she had heard about the nation of Israel and the God of Israel and the way that maybe these guys treated her that made her say, all right, I'm going to risk everything. I'm going to risk my livelihood. I'm going to risk my family. I'm going to risk it on these two guys. That's what part of what makes me think they were there for more than a few hours. I think that they developed a relationship with her, even though it might have been it wasn't, obviously, I don't think it was an intimate one. I don't think so. I don't think there was any sex involved. I think that there were conversations that they had about their nation and their God and the promised land and their hopes and their dreams. And in her mind, she's thinking, this is amazing. This is something I can get behind. These are people that are fascinating to me. Where they're going, what they're doing. I mean, you got to remember, nobody suspected anybody would take over any sort of country without some sort of war. So Rahab's thinking there's going to be a war. And I'm going to bet on the God of the Israelites beating the gods of the Canaanites. That was her position. And in that position, some would say faith, she says, I know the Lord has given you this land and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We've heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea for you when you came up out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites to the east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. So she speaks out of this faith. She speaks out of an awareness of the stories of the God of the Israelites and the fact that they had killed and wiped out two kings on the east side of the Jordan. right across from Jericho. In doing that, right, she puts herself in a position of, uh, of honor and of being honored. Now, remember, evidently this conversation, didn't happen when she hid them. So the spies' position, right, in all of this, they're in the hotel, they're hanging out. Rahab gets word that the guards are coming. I don't know by whom or when, but she grabs those two guys and she goes, I'm going to hide you on the roof. Follow me. Up to the roof they go. She rakes back some of the flax. She rakes it back on top of them. She smooths it out. She it looks good. But of course, they're under it. And I'm sure their faces are wrapped, because if you've ever been in a hay bale, hay piles, and I have as a child, played some games in some big old farm, barns on farms up in New England, and it is a dusty mess when you're in the hay bales. It's a lot of fun, but wow. So I imagine it's dusty and dirty underneath there, and they're laying there and they're waiting. They don't know what to think. They can't hear what's going on. They're partially probably wondering, should they have run? Should they have found a better place to hide? Because all somebody theoretically has to do is walk around up on the roof, and eventually they'd step on them. So I don't know how she hid them, but they're sitting there, and I don't know if you've ever played, like, I don't know, serious hide and seek. I don't know. Maybe you've been chased by someone and you do hide from them. There is an adrenaline, right? Your heart is pounding. Your breathing is heavy, even if you're trying to keep it quiet. You've got all kinds of internal thoughts, and part of them has to be, are we hid enough? Is something sticking out? Can they see can they see the color of my jacket? What is the word I'm looking? Robe. Thank you. And Bob's like, jacket? I know. It's all I could come up with. I was going to say blanket. I knew that wasn't it. All right. Robe. So they have all these thoughts. The sun is going down. Remember, the sun's already going down. The gates are shut. That's when the king sent the guards. So it's probably dusk, which does make hiding a little easier, even underneath the hay. The shadows are weird. The lighting isn't quite there. And if you're holding a torch, I don't know if you've ever been around a torchlight, but movies lie about torches all the time, man. These guys light a torch, light some stick that's been stuck on a wall in some ancient pyramid for 2,000 years. Sorry, I yawned really bad. For 2,000 years, and somehow it not only does it light, it lights massively, and it stays lit for like the next 3 hours while they're walking around. None of that's true. There's no way that's true. Anyway, if you have a torch and it's burning, it's not the best light. You can't direct it. It's kind of, it's ambient light. It's ambiance. It's not enough really to go searching for something. So they would have had to walk all over the rooftop. And of course, if they drop any of that flame, if the oil drips, then you could have a massive fire on the wall of the city in an instant, because dried flax are going up fast and smoky. They smoke a lot too. All right, so they're hid. They're laying there. They're wondering what's going on. The guards are on their way. They eventually show up. Now, I don't know if they're close enough to hear it. The guards ask the question. Rahab lies. And then they just stay there. The guards leave. It says that the guards left, and the spies, So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut again. So the fords of the Jordan were where most people crossed, right? The fords are areas where it's not as deep. It's where, what's his name? King David went when he left the city of Jerusalem He went to the fords, places where the river runs really shallow, and you could splash across and not lose anything. Carts don't get stuck in the mud, that sort of thing. So they're on their way. They're out. The gate's shut again. The spies aren't going to go anywhere as far as they know. We're stuck in the city. So they're waiting. Rahab comes up the stairs and she's like, listen, before you go to sleep, we're all scared to death. We don't know what's going to happen. 40 years ago, we all heard what your God did when you crossed out of Egypt, when you crossed the Red Sea. Stories of your God have been around for 40 years. And I'm sure that implied in all of that was also stories that we've covered here about the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud and the various supernatural provision of food and water. There's stuff that's going on, and people are like, clearly there is a God of Israel, the Israelites, that is very, very powerful and takes really good care of them. And then when they came along the east side of the Jordan and they took on two very powerful kings and they defeated them both, especially if you remember Og, whose bed was 13 feet long and 9 feet wide, made out of iron because of how big he was. And we talked about where they might have came from and where his genetics came from, that sort of thing. But they were like another two very powerful, as far as we were concerned, very powerful tribes, nations were destroyed. So we're not in a good position. None of us want to fight you. Now, I think this is really important because if you remember, one of my main points from last week was, hey, Jericho did nothing to provoke genocide. They did nothing to provoke an all-out wipeout. So here we have an admission of great fear. And she says, your God is the reason why we're afraid. I'm sorry, I'm going to find it. Verse 11, when we heard it, our hearts melted, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is in heaven above and on earth below. In other words, for me, this is another important little point. She's saying there's something personal about your God. All of our gods live wherever, like they're out there in the sky, in the moon, in the moon, in the stars. They're in the clouds, whatever. Your God is in heaven and on earth. Your God is above you and with you. And that's very powerful and strange, and we don't quite understand it. We're scared of it. So this is what I'm asking you. Verse 12, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us this land. All right, so she's asking for kindness. She's asking for that you will show kindness to my family because I've shown kindness to you, which for me goes back to why she hid them. She hid them because she believed that was the safest thing for her to do, not just send them away and say, hey, the guards are coming, run like crazy. She did the safest thing she could for them. She showed them kindness, and she said, because of my kindness to you, I would like you to show kindness to me and my family. And of course, then she lists, we're talking about no small number. She's like, I want kindness for my mother, my father, which that makes perfect sense. My brothers, plural, my sisters, plural, and their families. So I'm guessing you could easily be looking at 60 people. And the spies say, our lives for your lives. In other words, it's a vow of life and death. It's a covenant. If you don't tell them what we're doing, we will treat you kindly when the Lord gives us his lands. So they make a vow, they make an exchange. They're like, if you don't expose us, if you don't tell them what we've been doing, which I'm guessing means they had told Rahab what they were doing. If you don't tell them what we're doing, then we will spare you. Now, because of the, sorry, I skipped over all kinds of my notes. The vow, the agreement was life for life. So she gave them a plan on how to be safe. This is what I find interesting. She lowers them by rope. I'm guessing this has been done before. I don't think this was the first time she had helped somebody sneak out of the city at night. Matter of fact, it might have been a regular practice. This is what I want to throw out there. It might have been a regular thing for those who lived in the city wall to sneak out of the city at night when they wanted to. I don't know what you'd want to do out there, but it's probably something you don't want to get caught doing. And it's probably something that guards had to keep an eye out for. Because again, if they're searching for somebody like, I don't know, a thief or a murderer, or in this case, a spy, you had to kind of keep an eye out for people that would let them down. Family members that would make arrangements. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's all kinds of people that might want to sneak down at night. I just don't think it was like this rare, like, oh my gosh, I have this crazy idea. I'm going to let you down. She's like, now the men said to her, oh no, sorry. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was a part of the city wall. And she said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there for 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the men had said to her, this oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless when we enter the land you have tied this scarlet cord to the window through which you let us down, unless you have brought your father and mother and your brothers and families into this house. Any of them that go outside of your house under the street, their blood will be on their own heads, and we will not be responsible for those that are not in your house. Their blood will be on our head if anyone lays a hand on them. But if you tell them what we're doing, we will be released from the oath that you made us swear. And she said, agreed. Let it be as you say. So she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord to the window. So basically, it was probably one of those situations where she, on the roof, she's like, your God's, awesome. We're all in fear. We don't want to fight you. This is, your God is a God that's with you here on earth as well as in heaven. Swear to me, my families will be safe. They're like, okay, we swear our life for your life. And then I think this is like kind of one of those addendums where one of the spies is like, well, actually, let's just make sure we got the details straight, okay? If your family's not in this house, that's not our responsibility. Anybody who's going to be saved has to be in this building, and you tie this scarlet cord to the window so that everybody on our side knows this house is to be left alone, untouched, and everybody in it is safe. Now listen, if they go out, that's on them. If they don't come in, that's on them. We're not going to be responsible for that. And if you tell anybody what we're doing, then we are released. We can wipe you out and your families. Absolutely. She's like, agreed. So down the rope they go. I don't know if they repelled, like some people just know how to do that. I mean, we did high ropes courses at the camp I ran for years. And there were guys who just, I made them wear a belt, but they didn't really need a belt. They were guys they would mountain climb and cliff climb, freestyle, all that stuff. They were talented. So I don't know if these spies had that kind of skill, but however they got down, they snuck down to the bottom of the wall. They snuck along the edge of the wall. They headed for the hills. Basically, she said, don't head toward the crossings. Don't go to the river. That's where they're all going to be looking for you. Spend 3 days up in the hills. Make sure that the guards are tired of looking, that they really can't find you and they've given up. After 3 days, then you can go home. And so when they left, they went into the hills and they stayed there for 3 days. I don't know what they ate. I'm guessing there was things that they could forage. They waited until the pursuers had searched all along the road and returned without finding them. Then the two men started back, and they went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Joshua son of Nun and told him everything that had happened. They said, Joshua, the Lord has surely given this whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of like sleeping on the ground, but when you're used to it, it's evidently not a big deal. So these guys slept on the ground. They stayed hidden. They didn't introduce themselves to anybody. They didn't try to interact with anyone. They stayed quiet. I'm sure they made, as anyone who camps out in the wilderness, I mean, eventually you kind of do little things to kind of make your life a little more comfortable while you're out there. But after 3 days, they went down to the fords of the river. They got across. They went up to see Joshua. And this is their interpretation of what's going on. Their interpretation of what's going on is the Lord is giving this nation, these people into our hands because they are in fear of us. They interpret the fear of the people as a sign that God already has killed them. That God has already set these guys up to be wiped out by the Israelites. Now, if you follow me at all on the epic narrative, you know that fear doesn't come from God. Fear is a tool of the enemy. But here they see the fear and they don't think, well, that didn't come from God. They literally think God caused the Canaanites to be in fear of us because he's already considered them dead. We're already going to wipe them out. Another thing that we have to consider is this. Could fear have been interpreted differently? Could they have said, listen, they are really scared to go to war with us. They believe that we will wipe them out. We are in the perfect position to start to influence their culture and ultimately bring the kingdom of God to that whole city and to that nation of the Canaanites. Just like the Lord wanted Abraham to do. Now, I know that's a radical thought for a lot of people. You're like, no way. No, you see, what did the Lord keep telling them? Don't be influenced by their culture. Don't give in to their gods. Don't marry and intermarry with them. Instead, influence them. Instead, show them the better way. Instead, live your life in such a way, and I will bring such favor upon you, your crops that grow, the hunting that you do, everything you do will be favored, and they will want to be connected to me, Yahweh. And you can give them that on-ramp. And ultimately, their culture will become the culture of heaven. That's what I think the fear was supposed to indicate. You can step in and bring them hope. You can step in and bring them love. You can step in and bring them joy, because I am not a God who brings fear. But instead, they translated, interpreted, applied the fear of man as coming from God and a sign from God that God wanted them all wiped out. The other thing that we have to consider is this. Rahab's lying wasn't okay with God. I remember so many times I remember these stories, and I remember being not only in Sunday school, but also being a Sunday school teacher, where the lying of Rahab was excused because it protected the spies of God. And that kind of mentality is a horrible mentality to have, because it allows you then to bring whatever you want to the table. You can do whatever you want in the name of God because God's with you and not with them. So you can lie, you can cheat, you can steal, you can make people feel guilty and shameful and fearful. You can manipulate, control, and drive people without love because, well, God's with me. That is just a recipe for disaster. And honestly, you probably all could tell stories of how that has worked out horribly in your life or in the lives of others that you've been around. Now, God's goodness is always there. Did Rahab lie? Yes. Did she have to? No. What would have happened? Well, they would have killed him. No, I don't think so. I think they would have been brought to the king. And he would have said, what are you doing here? They would have said, well, we're spying out the land. We're spying it out because we're going to bring a military force. And the king might have said, no, please don't. We don't want to die. What do we need to do to make peace with you? And they could have said, you know what? Let's bring back your idea to our leader, Joshua. And we will, we'll talk to our God and we'll get back to you. Like this could have ended in a nice conversation and a beautiful meal at the palace. I honestly believe that. And I know in some cases you'd say, well, Bob, you have to because you think God's good. And I would have to say, you're right. I do. And I hope that as you're listening to the epic narrative, you're starting to really believe that God has been good all through time because he has. And I will see you again next week on the epic narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
All right. Well, let's see. We've been at this now for 4 weeks. This is number 5. So appreciate you guys hanging out for the first month. And I just want to say one little quick thing, right? Just while this was going on, about a month ago, our producer moved into a new house, and I'm so excited for him and his wife and his child. The house is beautiful. They've been working really, really hard. Honestly, I just appreciate all this volunteer love and kindness to the epic narrative, and you guys are awesome for the way that you guys appreciate him. And mentioned him. I love Brian. I really do. He's been a friend for a long time, and I know he works really hard at his regular job, and then he pulls this off every week for us. And I really appreciate his beautiful wife, who also clearly lets him. She knows he does it. It's time spent doing something other than hanging with the family, and I always appreciate a wife that lets that happen. And I know Brian's priority is his family. And if in any way he thought this was hurting the family, not only would he be willing to give it up, I'd want him to give it up. But all that to say, Brian's an awesome guy. They've got a beautiful home, and I just bless him for it. I'm so excited for him. Also, just real quick, we're trying to raise that $5,000 this year to kind of set us up on the front end of the season to promote the season and get us ready for season 6, where as I'm currently already starting to work on, because we want to put together an online subscription where there'll be study guide / questions to answer each week, and then a weekly conversation where we meet online and get together and talk through those questions as well as the episode, and maybe even glean from each other more information that you've just picked up over the years. And sometimes sometimes I run into people and they're like, hey, did you know this about David? And I'll be like, what? I literally did the longest study of the life of David I could find online anywhere, and we're about to do it again, and it'll be even longer this time, at least by a couple episodes, because there's no way I'm doing an hour and a half long episode like I did in season 1. So we're going to at least do more episodes, and it'll probably go longer than before. And people come up with stuff, and that's true with even season 1. Somebody came and found me a few months ago. I was speaking at a family retreat, and he was like, hey, you said this about Noah, but did you know and he quoted, I think, something from Hebrews, and he was like, It's right there. Like you asked the question and the answer is right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I missed that. I don't know how, because it's not like I'm winging this thing. It's I do the study. Anyways, always appreciate that. Anyways, we're trying to raise that $5,000 so we can promote, get out in front of some of our expenses, as well as bless Brian and Anna for their work that they do to help us get the word out. Also, just a side note, I know I've mentioned Tyler Johnson to you. I think he's awesome. He's a friend of mine. I mean, I'm readily admitted in my biasness of how wonderful I think he is. Overseas Missions is his organization, but they just got back from the Ukraine a few weeks ago. Amazing stories of things they had to go through. He brought I think it's his 13-year-old daughter with him on her first mission trip, where there's bomb sirens going off, warnings going off, all that kind of stuff in the middle of the night. God bless him. Anyways, we're excited he's home, but he's the one who actually took the iconic photo of me talking. We use as the epic narrative symbol. He was, I and a pastor were sitting at a table just having a dialogue, having a cup of coffee, and I was telling a story, and he had grabbed my phone and he took a couple black and white photos, with the app right there, just the regular black and white app. And I thought it looked really cool. I have no idea why I saved it, but I did. And there we are. It is now the iconic photo that we use for the epic narrative. And I really appreciated I appreciate it because it is every time I look at it, I think, yeah, no, that's actually what I do when I'm telling a story. Like that's what I would look like. Oh man. I just thought you guys should know who did it and where it came from. And now you do. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're back again next week on the Epic Narrative as we continue our study of Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. See you next week.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.